That's the culture we want to encourage.
New Zealand First to take a call on Part 3, which is really the piece de resistance for this bill, and it's where the rubber meets the road for us, certainly. Mr O'Connor raises a good point that, certainly New Zealand First interpretation is about the culture in Part 3, and I think the government need to be sort of commended in parts because they understand that health and safety representatives is the key to help change that culture. So 2 thumbs up, well done for acknowledging that. But I want to also, while giving them a slight piece of well done, is taking a bit away from them to say you haven't gone far enough. And to understand that such a large percentage of New Zealand businesses are actually small and medium-sized businesses, and a large percentage of those businesses is where a lot of harm is caused, I think having 20 workers or more to enforce a health and safety representative is too high. And we need to ensure that we can get that gap down a little bit. In this section, Mr Chair, we do actually, New Zealand First does actually have 3 supplementary order papers or amendments to be put in there, and we would like to have them very seriously considered for moving forward with this bill. And certainly I'll start with probably one of the most important, which is the amendment to 65AA, which is what we're asking to be put in there, which is having training costs of health and safety representative covered by the government. So part 1 of that is training costs for health and safety representatives in small or medium-sized enterprises are to be funded by the government. Part 2 of 65AA in our amendment is the training costs referred to in subsection 1 include course costs, travel and time off work to attend training. Now, that may actually have a significant impact with our other supplementary order paper, which is course to reduce the number of workers to engage a health and safety representative from 20 down to 10. The reason why we've gone with the second amendment from 20 workers down to 10 is to, of course, make it affordable as we can for those small businesses. Understanding that a large amount of New Zealand is made up of those small businesses, many of those businesses are hand to mouth. They are, in most cases, businesses where people have set themselves up into a business and are actually doing it as a source of income for a job. It's not necessarily about profit, it's actually about survival. And we think those costs of those health and safety representatives, those course costs, the travel costs, the time away from work costs, should be covered by this government and in this legislation. If this was covered, if we could get the support from the government and our crossbenchers to support these costs being covered, then we would drag off our supplementary order paper with the reduction of 20 workers down to 10, and we would certainly be keen to support Labor with their complete and utter removal. Because we are talking about a culture change. And when questions were asked to the Minister in the House 2 weeks ago by myself, we asked about those costs, and the Minister, quote unquote, said the benefit, or the most of the benefit, lies on the employer or the PCBU, and therefore they should wear the cost. But in order for culture change to change, you need education, and 2, you need good leadership. And as a government which is in leadership, which is your sole role in governance is to lead, then you should be taking that lead. Everybody will have a benefit of a reduced health and safety regime where our numbers of deaths are being drastically reduced. And if a government can stand up and say this is important for our workers, this is important for our employers, and this is also very important to our government, then that's the pragmatic, solid approach that they should take to alleviate the stress. It is very important with culture because, of course, we're talking about imposing some legislation as a top-down. And if you don't have the buy-in from the bottom, the people that are actually being affected in their workplaces, you certainly will not have the overall blanket support for this new legislation, and it might go by the wayside. Even with the extra $8 million of labour enforcement officers out there in the workplace, you still will not have the support that is required because there's no buy-in. And health and safety representatives are the key. That is the knight in shining armour to try and alleviate this atrocious number of workplace accidents, injuries and deaths in New Zealand when we compare ourselves to the rest of the world. Twice as many as what they've got in Australia and nearly 4 times as many as what they've got in parts of Europe is just unacceptable. Mr Chair, we absolutely support this culture change. We would like to see...
Thank you. I call Denise Rowe.